Alright guys, welcome back. Time for more Legacy Top 8 action. I know you guys love that. Well, so do I. So yeah, let's just get into the action. I hope you guys had an awesome new year. Let's see. After the bans of Frog and Vexing Bauble, I wanted to take a harder look at classic tempo decks, not carried by Psychic Frog, to see if they were good enough. And I think it's safe to say that they are. So first up, I took the Grixis version to a top 8 finish. A friend of mine worked on the deck as well and top 4 at the same event. We played the same 75. That's always a fun time. I suggest you check out that video if you haven't already. And up next, I believe it was after the Super Qualifier results, where Mono Red had a breakout tournament, I decided to try another version of Delver. I wanted to go to the Isid version / Questing Druid because mainly that version supports a basic island, so I wouldn't just fold to Blood Moon, and then I have a couple of Hydroblasts in the sideboard, and all of a sudden we have a plan. But we still play the classic temple plan of Delver, Channeler, Daze, Wasteland, Force of Will's Murktide on top. So the only thing changed is basically the utility cards, which in this deck will be Card Advantage from Questing Druid. It's also an additional threat. It's not that bad. I think it's actually totally fine. Questing Druid is a bit of a weird one where it's a situational draw 2, I guess you can call it. But if you hit your counters, it's kind of bad unless you Questing Druid in response to something. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly no expressive iteration, but it does the job here. Sideboard incredibly straightforward, I'll say. Consigns for colorless, Hydroblast for Mono Red Prison in the Mirror, 1 negation to back up the main deck negation against combo, single copy of Price of Progress, that's all I could find the room for. Love that card. Cast into the Fire as a Chalice removal that also kills some dorks out of Nadu Elves. A Braid as Chalice removal that also kills a dork out of that deck, out of Eldrazi, out of the Mirror. Pyroblast for blue decks, and Cage for a combined Reanimator and Nadu hate card. So without further ado, let's get into the action. This is, top 8 replays of Grixis, well, Temur Delver. All right, this is round 1 of the challenge. I'm playing the mirror match. At this point, I don't know that because this is game 1. I've decided to include game 1 since it was the best in the series by far. Turn 1 Channeler, never bad. No reason to crack a fetch land here. Let's see what my opponent does. They follow up with another Channeler of their own. So I guess my plan is to wasteland my opponent and kill the Channeler. Playing around Daze a little bit here. I see a Daze that I keep here. I think being on the play in this situation, Daze is going to be fine in most games. Let's see what happens here. I cast a Ponder. I put a Force of Will into my graveyard. These cards are... I guess the heat is just decent, then I can shuffle, so pretty easy keep here. Opponent on basic island, which is sometimes a weakness, sometimes just great play. So I see another Daze. I get rid of that Daze. Let's see. My opponent dazes this on Holy Heat, and I'm happy to fight over it. That's kind of the point. Oh, there's a Murktide Regent that I keep. Okay. So I'm ahead on the board. My opponent has 6 resources total, so do I. So, you know, pretty even, except I have a creature in play, I guess. So here I can choose between Murktide Regent and Questing Druid. I believe I try and turn up the heat on my opponent here. I play Murktide. Should probably try and fix... Yeah, this is better. So Murktide Regent it is. It gets forced pitch force. That's what happens. I'm now ahead on resources. My opponent did not find a Murktide here. They go end step Seek the Beast, which is kind of a cool trick here. So the cards they hit here, they now have access to on my turn and their own turn. This slows me down a tiny bit, I believe. Let's see. They have a Lightning Bolt and a Daze. I get in for 1, and then it's my turn to go the end step Seek the Beast. Let's see what I hit here. I see a Channeler that I keep in a land, so pretty average. Here comes my opponent's Murktide. 7/7. I can play Druid. I can play Channeler, growing the Druid. Bauble the draw for my opponent's turn. Pretty easy to read, I guess, since it wasn't played the turn before. I'm taking a hit from a Merc here, and it's time to hit something good. I surveil into a Brainstorm, which is fine. When it draws a card, I cast a Brainstorm looking for a Brazen Borrower, looking for my own Murktide to block. I end up finding Murktide. Let's see if I can keep Delirium here. I can play the Murktide out as a 3/3, keep Delirium. So attack for 7. So now I'm basically forcing my opponent to have 2 removal spells or I win the game. So Lightning Bolt to the face, and the writing's on the wall here. Unholy Heat with 4 types, killing the Murktide, attacking for lethal. So my opponent won a pretty sweet game here to start out the tournament. I end up winning the next 2 games. They weren't very exciting, to be honest. My opponent pulled it to a wasteland, had some bad brainstorms, and yeah, this was just by far the best game of the series. So yeah, 1-0. Let's keep it up. All right, guys, quick message here. If you want to have access to my deck guides, my strategy articles, whether you want to pitch me a sweet deck to play on the channel, whether you want to look into coaching or simply just want to say thank you for the content I put out, please check out my Patreon below and become a Baron today. Now, let's get back to the games. All right, round 2. Here I'm playing against Fast Reanimator. And this is a weird one because I also saw my opponent had an alternate sideboard plan with the Chain of Smog and the Magecraft guys. So I actually decided to keep this hand with conviction because, look, if I mulligan, I can get picked apart by, you know, the plan B, the discard stuff. So I actually decide that I'm going to, between, you know, the times where my opponent does not have a fast hand, between the times my opponent has to mulligan, between the hands my opponent slows down with, you know, discard spells, etc., between the times my opponent keeps a hand with the Magecraft guys, I decide this is strong enough. I would call this a marginal keep. Definitely not something that I think is clear cut, but I think in the context of this matchup and how this match played out, it made sense. Also, looks like my opponent mulled a 5 here, which is obviously awesome. Could easily just lose turn 1 though. Thoughtseize is the play. Honor hits the bin. Let's see if I can do anything cool here. I draw the Bauble, so now I can double Bauble, which is kind of cool. Wasteland is not good. Land is not good. So now I believe I should bolt. Huh. Okay, so I play around the mage. No, I don't. Okay, nice. I like this play. I was about to say, it looks like I'm playing around the Magecraft stuff, but I'm not here. I'm trying to slow things, well, quite the opposite. Speed things up, rather. I'm actually, so let's talk about this. I graveyard the Force of Negation. At this point, I'm forgetting that I'm getting a random draw from Bauble. I don't think it's a good play to bottom this card. I think I'm supposed to try and get lucky and have another blue card underneath. But I guess things work out. I don't see a blue card there. Then I random draw a blue card on my opponent's turn. My opponent has to pass. So now, how do I close out my opponent? My opponent's at 11. My opponent just surveilled. Surveilled to the graveyard, that is. How do I close out my opponent? So I decided to go for the upkeep Lightning Bolt, looking for a blue card that I imagine will ice the game. My opponent fires off this Entomb. They might as well. They can't play around in much stuff. So upkeep Bolt to the face. Also worth noting, only Animate Dead and Exhume are alive at this point. I do find a blue card, and I can attack for 6 here, and my opponent now needs discard spell and 2-mana reanimation, and they don't have it. And what do you know? I'm off to a 2-0 start here. Pretty cool game here where my opponent's opener couldn't punish my opener, so it's kind of a leveling game, I feel like. And then I was lucky to, yeah, draw out of it, put on the clock, and get in there. All right, round 3. I'm currently up a game against Eldrazi. On the draw here, this hand is not ideal. I do have some counters, though. I can, you know, counter a Chalice, maybe kill a Chalice. I don't have a 1-drop. I think any hand with without a 1-drop is just, you know, not the best. But 2 champs, they draw the 1-drop. Opponent led on Cavern, which makes Consigned Memory way less reliable. Let's see if they dismember end of turn here. That's kind of the only play they have. They don't dismember end of turn. So now my opponent plays well here, wastelanding. So now Daze is not a thing. And here comes the dismember. I wasteland my opponent here from the Delver flip. And all of a sudden we have a game that I'm certainly not a favorite to win, but well, especially now, I guess. I keep drawing lands here, which is kind of funny. I'm opponent with no play from 3 mana. Says a lot about their hand. So Thought-Knot Seer, Kozilek's Command, the 7-drop, oddly drawn. Yeah, 7-drop in Once Upon a Time. Or maybe they could have Fleshraker actually, and they just don't want to play it into Bolt. I keep drawing lands here, which is absurd. My opponent tries to Kozilek's Command. I say no. My opponent plays Ancient Tomb Pass, so definitely a weird game we have on our hands here. Fleshraker is my read here, but they simply cannot double spell, so it's not worth it to just, because I have unused mana here, they don't want to make me use it. Or help me use it, rather. Let's see what I can draw here. I draw Thundering Falls, and I see a Delver, and that actually incentivizes me to slow down. Could have played a Murktide here, but I don't. I think I like this. Here's it that heralds the end. Really not impressive. Just a 2/2 at this point. Here's Seek the Beast. I hit Lightning Bolt and Delver. Pretty ideal. And now I can cast those 2 spells and still keep up. Still keep up Consign. So, quick note here. I could have heated the Glaring Fleshraker end of turn, but I decide to play around Kozilek's Command. Bauble does not flip Delver. Here's Murktide Regent, and my opponent has a Maze of Ith. So at this point, I have to find a wasteland at some point. I'm keeping the Bauble in play to help flip the Delver, so I activate on my opponent's turn. My opponent is considering end step, Kozilek's Command, I think. Decide to not go for it. And this is a key moment of the game. So I bubble myself Sea an Island. So that obviously does not flip Delver. Thinking hard about this Unholy Heat, I end up casting Unholy Heat on the Fleshraker, well knowing that I have to now force to negate a Kozilek's Command. Force to negation the Kozilek's Command. My opponent is left with an 0-1. Price of Progress is the card here. Whoop. So draw the island, stack the Bubble Trigger, and Delver Trigger correctly. You put the Delver Trigger on the stack first. That means the Bubble Trigger resolves. So you draw the card, then you get to try and flip with a freshie. So Price of Progress, pretty good card here. Now I can get in for 3 damage. My opponent has 5 non-basics. Decide to kill opponent's 1/1 and pass the turn here. My opponent finds nothing, concedes, and that puts me at 3-0. So the 1-up Price of Progress sure was impactful here. That's a way to beat Maze of Ith, aside from Wasteland. So yeah, off to a 3-0 start. Can't complain. Let's keep it up. Okay, next match is round 4. I'm currently up 1-0 against my good friend Ali. Ali loves to play lands, and I don't love to play against lands, so bad combination. We currently have we haven't traded games. I just won a very close game 1, I guess. I spoke too soon, so let's see. Loaming back the Beseiju. So getting the Loam in rotation with Ursa Saga is very annoying. You need to put on a lot of pressure. You need to have wastelands that don't really do all that much, but they can, be exactly what you need to get over the hump. Let's see. Ellie has Loam in rotation, passes the turn. And I draw Channeler. So this is what you should do if you're picking up the deck. You should make sure to always play a 1-drop turn 1. And if you don't have it in your opener, you should believe that it's on top of your deck. Ursa Saga is now ready to go. Albert played out the Beseiju, which, could mean nothing, could mean he's out of lands. I decided to cast some stuff on the first main phase here. This is kind of cool. So now I have land, artifact, sorcery in the yard. So now I just need an instant. What I do here is I mill over the lightning bolt. So now I have delirium. I do get plowed and I fight over it. This is big. I fight over it, pitching a Murktide, milling over another bolt that I don't think will be very good this game. Also, my opponent tapped down from making a token, so that's not bad. So before the saga goes off on the following turn, my opponent crop rotates into a Maze of Ith. It's a pretty cool play. Here's Soul Guide Lantern. My opponent, so this is also a big one. We talked about this afterwards, and Albert is totally fine about me sharing it. So he exiled a Force of Will from my graveyard with this Lantern. Left the lone sorcery out there, so not exactly what you want to be doing. I'm trying to find a Force Negation or Daze in response to this Loam. And my opponent is right back at it with the Saga shenanigans. I get in for 3 because I really don't want my opponent to... Oh, right. There's some Ace of Ith. Okay, well. Here's a Brainstorm. I'm trying to make my... Oh, wow. This is Price of Progress. I was about to say I'm trying to make my Murktide as big as possible. Albert does not fire the Soul Guide because he's Hellbent and wants to cycle it end of turn. Which he does. Dretches the Loam. I'm fine with that. Ghost Quarter kills a land. Scary stuff with the island in the graveyard. Let's see if Price of Progress can fix this problem. So what I do here is, I believe, is upkeep the price to get a little bit of selection in for my draw step. Albert with a heads-up play, crop rotates for a Thespian stage to copy a forest to save some damage. And I have this leftover wasteland that I should have talked about a few turns ago. My plan was to build a big Murktide and then kind of surprise my opponent with a wasteland to get in for damage. I wasteland my opponent an attack here. My opponent concedes, even though they would have been at 1 life here, so maybe they thought the Murktide was an 8-8, maybe they didn't have any outs, who knows, but that puts me at 4-0, running really, really hot. I feel like I'm playing at a reasonable level, and my deck is good, so all in all, can't really complain. That combination is what you want to be looking for if you want to do well in a tournament. All right, this is round 5, game 3. I'm on the play. I'm playing the Delver Mirror. I'm sad. I forgot to show the sideboard for a lot of the rounds today. I'm sorry about that. I'll definitely remember that the next time. For this matchup, I don't want my forces at all. I trim a Daze, and then I have all my blasts and a little bit of removal from a Braid. So yeah, being on the play here is quite decent. Let's see what I end up doing here. I imagine it's Volcanic Island, Ponder, see 2 lands, shuffle my deck, crack a Bauble to see a Pyroblast, so pretty good knowledge. Also, one thing I want to mention is, if you shuffle on your Ponder, and you led on just a duel, you look like somebody who doesn't have more lands, so this is actually a cool scenario where I don't mind getting wastelanded at all. Basic Island Delver that I'll probably bolt. My opponent dazes, I'll daze, so this is a cool spot because this is a sideboarded game. I already saw Pyroblast, which means if this was game 1, I would probably just let this daze resolve, play a land, play a 5/5 Murktide, but since this is sideboarded games, we have to play a little bit differently. I play Delta to protect my mana base. My opponent plays Floodstrand to protect their mana base, so pretty straightforward Delver things. Could go for Surveil here. Let's see, I don't. I like that. So now I have Questing Druid. I'm thinking a little bit about Daze, but I'm also thinking about, you know, getting wastelanded. So I actually don't go for the Druid here. I do go for the Surveil because I'm using my mana anyway. So I believe I go Questing Druid on my on my own end step to have access to whatever I hit here on my opponent's turn. And I hit some good cards. I hit Murktide and Ponder. So as I said, I'm a bit worried about Wasteland here. I draw a land, which is awesome. If I don't get wasted, I can cast 2 spells, and that means my Questing Druid is most likely going to be a 3-for-1 this game as well. So I start with Murktide. I know it's going to get killed, so at this point it's just about, you know, exhausting resources. Unholy Heat, okay. So I Wasteland here. So my opponent has a Pyroblast left. Here's a Delver. So I'm certainly ahead on resources here. Let's see. Here I sequence, this is a kind of a cool sequence, so, well, yes, I should have just Wastelanded my, no, this is good, because now I play around Force of Will Days. That's exactly why this is good. So the reason why I don't Wasteland first is then I don't resolve Murktide versus Force of Will Days. Now I do. So my opponent forces Flame of Anor. That's kind of cool. I didn't notice that when I played the game. Yeah. And kill the red source. I know my opponent has Pyroblast. But no red source. And all of a sudden, I'm the driver's seat here. I ponder, I keep the green source because now I can play the Questing Druid, which is not nothing. My opponent flips with a Brainstorm. It's annoying because I actually respected Days quite well up until this point. But I don't think I can let that Brainstorm resolve. Cameo attacking. I Pyroblast the Brainstorm and it's all over. My opponent does not have a Force nor a Daze, and they don't like how the game looks from here with me having a couple of creatures. So 5-0, lock for top 8. Can't complain. Next up, quarterfinals. All right, quarterfinals. I got a concession in the last round of the Swiss. Usually when 2 players are X and O, whoever wins the die roll gets the concession. Everybody gets a nice break, and we get ready for top 8. So in this match, I'm playing against my Japanese friend Inf. He loves to play Delver. I love to play Delver. We greet each other with Sensei. It's quite wholesome. So this is game 1. I keep this hand. I go for basic Island Delver. It's super rare that I go for this play, but this is definitely a place for it. Let's see if we trade. We don't trade dazes. I daze the Channeler. Opponent checks the Bauble to learn about... Yeah, I don't know. I guess they saw the card after I did not flip. So here I can choose to play Brainstorm. I can choose to wait. I choose to wait here. Opponent passes a turn. Bobble myself. Chandler's terrible. Here's Insta Brainstorm. Yeah, this is a big one. So I decide to force a will to Seek the Beast. Not ideal. My opponent has the Daze and hits a Daze off of the Seek the Beast, so that's awesome. That's exactly what you want to be doing when you respond to a spell. So now, this game should not be winnable, right? My opponent has 6 resources. I have 5 resources, so let's see. Murktide Regent. That's a way to cheese the game. Murktide resolves. Okay. We got game. Wasteland Pass is weird. I don't flip the Delver. That would actually be a way to win that game. My opponent's at 10. This is a weird game. So, bouncing the Merc. I get in for 2 now. Can't flip a Delver. Just had to slow roll the land because of Brainstorm. My opponent Brainstorms. Also worth noting that they haven't cracked their Wasteland, but that's just good play, realizing when it's a colorless source. Bolting the Delver. Not bad. Do I get Delirium here? Looks like I get Delirium, clear some bad cards. I'm willing to draw the Murktide, get in for 3. My opponent's now at 4, so all of a sudden this game where I got Seek the Beast double dazed is looking very, very possible to win. Let's see what my opponent comes up with. Another Wasteland. That's terrible. Here's a Wasteland on my green source. Here's Lightning Bolt on the Channeler. Like that a lot. So now I play my own Murktide Regent. I can't remember how big it is here. Let's see. It's just a 4/4, but my opponent's at 4 life, so, you know, that'll do. Here's an 8/8 Merc. Problematic. I go for my Surveil end of turn. Bottom Graveyard of Delta and draw the 1 of Petty Theft here. Let's see. My opponent's brainstorming in response. They need to hit Force of Will. They don't, and I kind of feel like I steal game 1 here, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, I end up losing game 2, so let's go to game 3 for the marbles. All right, game 3. Classic sideboarding. Cheap cards in, counterspells out. I'm on the play here. I don't love my Surveil land here, but if I only play 18 lands, I have to mulligan, so it's a lot better. I see a land on top of my opponent's deck, and I get wasted here, which is unfortunate. I draw the island, lets me play Magic. I decide to play Delver over Ponder with the logic of tempo's just a thing, right? So let's say I flip my Delver. I can then Ponder into my land drop. Then I didn't lose any, land drop tempo, but I, got in for damage. So here I decide to invite my opponent to daze. I think that's a play you can do sometimes, especially when you have hands where you expect to play into daze later. So yeah, this is a bit awkward to be honest. So I set up a Delver flip, but my opponent has so many cards that kills the Delver, so at that point it's kind of pointless. Now I know I have a dead card on top. That Wasteland was good. I briefly consider not playing out the Wasteland, but I think this is fine. Let's see what I go for. Leave my brainstorm here. So let's talk about this. Is this a good play? I Wasteland before. I feel like I should have Wastelanded after. Let's say I get dazed on my brainstorm here. Is that something I want? Maybe it's a good maybe it's a good play. Maybe I have enough time to punish that and then go Murktide later. My opponent lets this resolve, and I actually just wish my opponent good luck here. I don't think I'm winning this after brainstorm locking myself, so... Also, I had a lot of other stuff going on here. You can see my clock is in the red here, so... But that's mainly just to say that I wasn't a 0% to win this game. But yeah, brainstorm locking yourself when you're playing for everything is not ideal, but, could have happened in an earlier round, so I don't even tub 8, right? So yeah, pretty cool run. Quarterfinals after a flawless Swiss. So kind of brutal. I lose 1 match, and that's the quarters. But, that's how Magic works. Sometimes you top 8 with 4-2. Sometimes you go 6-0. Sometimes it doesn't really matter, right? Magic is about winning the right matches. It's not about winning as many matches as possible. That's just how tournament Magic works. So in this tournament, I did not distribute my 1 loss very well. If I lose round 3 and win the rest, that would be a lot better. That's just how it goes. All you can do is play to your best of your ability and have fun while doing it. And that's certainly what I did this tournament. I hope you guys enjoyed the rerun. I can't promise that I'll be posting as many top 8s as I have post-bannings here. It's been quite nice for me, and I'm enjoying it. So yeah, you should as well. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Good luck in your next Legacy tournament.